Before we begin, let me explain why learning Git and GitHub will help UX writers and content designers. Say, for example, you want to contribute to your design system, which is hosted in Figma, or you want to reduce your designer dependency in your organization. Meaning, you don't want to rely on your designers to copy your content changes from Confluence or Google Doc and paste it into Figma frames. Sometimes they could miss a few content, sometimes they could miss a few frames, and the designers who are using those frames can also miss the content changes because you are relying on your designers to copy the changes from doc to Figma frames. So the reason you can reduce these and start making contributions to your design system in Figma is using a feature called branching. So what do you think Figma branching is based out of? It's basically a stripped down, a simpler version of Git concept. And one of the main reasons that you would want to learn Git is you can start making UX writing open source contributions. So if you're a beginner who wants to create a portfolio, then you can start making open source contribution to apps which are real and are used by real customers all around the world. So if this sounds interesting, then you are going to love this video. I'm going to explain every Git concepts as simple as possible with examples by making comparisons with our daily workflow. Let's start with what is Git. The technical explanation is it is a version control software that keeps track of all the changes made in a file. In simpler terms, it keeps track of all the changes made to a file and saves them as checkpoints like V1, V2, V3, and so on. So how do these checkpoints help? Say, for example, your company has released a new feature and it has introduced some bugs and your customers are complaining it. Now, what you can do is you can either fix those issues and roll out an update, or if a bug is very complicated to fix in a day or in a few hours, then you can use these checkpoints to roll back the release and go back to the previous versions. One of the main reasons to use Git is it makes working as a team a lot easier. Say, for example, if you're a company of 10, 100 or 1000 and everyone would want to work on the app to update, a team would be taking care of the collaboration module, a team would be taking care of the security module, and if all these people want to work simultaneously, then Git makes it a lot easier. So everyone can work on their changes in their local machine and push changes to a remote repository which is hosted somewhere in cloud. So that is how Git helps a lot of companies. Next, what is GitHub? GitHub is a free source code hosting service which uses the concepts of Git. So theoretically, what it basically does is, earlier I mentioned that you could store your source code in a remote repository, right? Where you would store the remote repository is github.com. So it's like a Google Drive, but it's entirely made for collaboration and development. If you're storing in Google Drive, you could just only store it, maybe make some additional changes here and there and everything, but that's about it. You cannot deploy it to anywhere else. Your source code has to be deployed somewhere so that it can be served to your customers and users. So that is where GitHub comes in. Fun fact about GitHub is it is owned by Microsoft, and one of the close competitor is Bitbucket, which is developed by Atlassian, the company which makes softwares like Confluence and Jira. So now that we have understood the basics, it is not enough. These concepts are something that you cannot just remember unless you actively use it. So you are going to make your first open source contribution by making a change in my blog uxwriter.live, which is hosted in github.com. The idea is simple. You're going to make a change in this post and you're going to add something like, hey, I'm Prithvi and this is my first open source contribution. Okay, so to make an open source contribution, we are going to need a couple of things. The first thing is you need a GitHub account, which you can create one for free in github.com. You could just go there, sign up, and you could create one. Once you have done that, go to desktop.github.com and download the app for your operating system. And I'm using Mac, so I'm gonna download the Mac OS version. And if you're using M1 Mac, then download the Apple Silicon version of it. Then you're going to go to code.visualstudio.com/download, and you're going to download the Mac version for it. And if you're on Windows, download the Windows version, and I'm going to download the Apple Silicon version. Once you've created your GitHub account, downloaded your GitHub Desktop app, and downloaded Visual Studio Code, the next thing we're going to do is install a package manager called Homebrew, using which we are going to install Hugo. So let me just quickly explain what Homebrew is and Hugo is. Let me just quickly explain what Homebrew and Hugo is. Homebrew is like an app store for iOS and Play Store for Android. This allows me to install all the other packages which I would need. For example, I've built my blog, which is what you're going to contribute to, using Hugo. So what is Hugo? It is like a template which is already available. There are several templates available in Hugo, and I'm using one. It's like a Wix or a Squarespace or all those website builder stuffs, but for development. This gives me extensive customization options. So I've used Hugo to build my website, but there are other packages like Jekyll, Elementally, all those stuffs, but I've used Hugo. So first we are going to install Homebrew, using which we are going to install Hugo as well. So this step, this installation of Homebrew and Hugo using the steps which I'm going to show is only for the Mac users. And if you're running on Windows, I've linked a separate video in the description, which would be the first link. You can use that link to install Hugo on your Windows machine. You don't even need to install Homebrew. So back to the Mac users. So what you're going to do is search for Homebrew. Once you have done that, go to the first link and copy this entire code, open your terminal and paste the code and hit enter, and it will ask you for your password. Enter it, and again click enter, and this will take a couple of minutes depending on your internet connection and other few things on your machine and your CPU as well. Okay, so once Homebrew is installed, then what we are gonna do is we're gonna just clear this terminal and run another command called brew install Hugo. We are asking brew, the Homebrew which we just installed, to install Hugo. So I'm just gonna hit enter, and it will take a couple of minutes, probably a minute or two, to download and then install it. Once this is done, we're gonna check if it's installed correctly. So for that, what we are gonna do is run a command called which Hugo. So now this should show you this user local bin, and it means it's installed. So one of the way to check is we can run a Hugo command, Hugo version, to check which version of Hugo is currently installed on your machine. So it's version 0.9 plus extended. Okay, AMD-C2. Perfect. Now we have everything we need to make our open source contribution: a GitHub account, GitHub Desktop app, VS Code, and we have installed Hugo using Homebrew. And if you're running on Windows, please check the first link in the description. It will take you to a different video which will clearly explain on how to install Hugo on your Windows machine. So once that is done, log into your GitHub account, sign in. So for now I'm using a temporary email address which I just created. Okay, once you're here, you're gonna search for my blog. It's pri.prithvi.tarun/my blog. Yes. Then the first step is to fork it. So what basically forking is you're creating a duplicate version of my entire code base into your account. So that is what it basically is. So once I forked the repository, then what you're gonna do is click this code button and open this repository using your GitHub Desktop app. Click open GitHub Desktop. So the first thing it will ask you to do is make sure you have already signed into your account, then proceed with this. So if you have already signed into your account, the first thing it will ask you to do is it will ask you where to clone the entire repository. So I'm just gonna clone it in my documents GitHub folder, which I've already created. I'm gonna click clone. Once that is done, what we are going to do is we are going to report an issue in my repository. So go to Prithvi Tarun, my blog. Make sure you're in iPrithvi Tarun my blog and not in your account my blog. Go to issues, create a new issue called I am Pete, which is the fake name I created for this purpose, for this video purpose, and say I'm Pete, my OS contribution name is missing, something along those lines. So an issue should make sense who would be reviewing this. So it's for the project maintainers. So and in this case the project maintainer is also me. Click submit new issue. Congratulations, your first you have successfully created an issue. Then what you're gonna do is fix this issue. So open your GitHub Desktop account, app again, click your current branch, click new branch. We just have to create a new branch. So what a branch is, it just takes screenshots or save snippets of all the changes that you make in this branch. So when you want to push those changes to the remote repository, it'll only compare the changes which you made and not the entire repository line by line, only the specific lines and files where you made the changes. So it's easier for the machine to compile, compare, and just merge the changes wherever necessary. So I'm just gonna name it adding name Pete and the issue name, which is 28. Create the branch. So then you're gonna open Visual Studio Code and search for a post called make your first open source contribution. Where is it? Okay, search for a post called make your first open source contribution. Okay, so this is where we are going to make the change. Hey, this is Pete making my first open source contribution here. Then what we are gonna do is click terminal and click on new terminal. Type in a command called Hugo server. So what this basically does is, now that we have made the change, we want to make sure that our change does not break anything else. For a small change like this, it should be okay. It's pretty straightforward. I'm just adding a new line. I'm not adding any functions, images, or anything. But in a real development scenario, you would not just make all the code changes and just push it to a remote repository. You'll have to test this change on your local machine. So type in Hugo server and hit enter. So this will run a bunch of commands, and then you can see web server is available at localhost. Hold on command and left click this link. In Windows it would be control and left click, I guess. Now that you can see, it opens the entire website in my browser, which is hosted from a local server. So this is not the internet, it's loaded from your local machine using the files which you cloned. So if I just go to this post, now I can see my changes. Now you can check that nothing is breaking. You can close this, then close this terminal, then go back to the GitHub Desktop app, and you can see the change that you have made in this branch. So this green represents, this green section represents that you have added a new line. So yeah, so this is done. And if you're making a contribution by watching this video, please don't remove this line, and please don't remove any other people's line. Okay, so just create a new line and add your name, add your description, and that is it. Now what you're going to do is commit this message saying fixes the issue hashtag. It will automatically fetch the recent issue which was created, and you can select the issue which you created. In this case, I am Pete, so I'm clicking this one and commit. That is all. And the final step is to publish the branch. This means this right now, the branch which you just created and made all those changes, only available in your local machine. No one else can see it. The project maintainer, which is me, I cannot see it. So you are going to publish this branch, which will allow me to view and review the branch. So you're going to click publish, then create a pull request. So this create a pull request, so fetches the issue. Hey review and merge this. Create pull request. Done. You've made your first open source contribution. Technically you've made 3 open source contribution. So the first thing is when you reported the issue, that is one. The second thing is you've created a pull request. That is the second. And the third thing would be when I merge this pull request, then it'll show up as third open source contribution in your profile. So what will happen next is I'll review this pull request, and if I have any other suggestions, which I won't, I'll add a comment or something like that. I'll just directly merge the pull request. Once it is done, you'll get a notification in your GitHub account, and you can see that your branch has been merged. And let me just show this from my perspective. So as soon as you raise a pull request, what I am going to see is this. I'll get a notification saying, hey, someone has raised an issue here, and also they have raised a pull request here. So I'll just go to this pull request, I'll review it. Okay, it all looks good. I'm just gonna go to the file change. I'm gonna review what has been changed. Okay, they just added a new line here, and if I have any changes here, I might probably add a comment saying please change this or something. Since I don't have anything, I would say something like looks good. And finally I'm gonna merge this pull request. As soon as it's merged, you will get a notification in your GitHub account. And if you go to uxwriter.live and click this post which you made the changes to, you can see your name. That is all. So you've made your first contribution, and I'm looking forward to all your pull requests. And in the meantime, if you have any other doubts, or if you're stuck in a specific step, just drop a comment or hit me up on Twitter. I'll explain, I'll walk you through the entire step, whatever to get you through this. But if you're watching this video and if you want to make your first open source contribution, then I'm here for you.